Hi, I'm Tiffany Haynes with Between Builds, and I'm here with Darin Petty and Jordan Wright at the Money20 MoneyPot. For those who can't see us, there's a lot of chaos going on around, and we're here with a great vibe and lots of fun. And we are going to talk about the insight and imagination that comes from between those build moments. So this is the K-pop Demon Hunters of Product Building podcast today. For those who haven't seen K-pop Demon Hunters, it's on Netflix and you can binge it after the podcast. But I'd love to just kind of introduce each other. You all know each other and you know me. Jordan and I are new, but that's okay. We're going to get to know each other. We're going to get to know each other. So Darin, we're going to start with you. Chisel. I'm an investor, for full disclosure, because I love what you're doing and what you're building. So I'm a huge fan.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What's going on?
Well,
what's happening?
You know, Chisel just came about from a culmination of being on all four sides of the sponsor bank world, right?
Yeah.
And having experience in that, and some really great people coming together that were already doing what we were doing in a different format. We decided to package it up and put it together as a company and an offering.
Right. Which is how I met you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing right now in the bank sponsorship / fintech / moving a lot of money. Helped me out with this. So it was great. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Jordan.
Yeah.
What's up?
My name is Jordan Wright. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Atomic Financial. We work with 9 of the top 10 banks in the United States, but I've also been in the fintech space for about 14 years now, 15 years. I love it. Built a couple of companies in it and excited to talk to you today.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. Thanks for introing yourself. I know we'll talk more. So if your product philosophy were a music genre, what would it be and why?
Well, so we actually held a fintech salon last night.
Yes.
My opening question to this group, which you know nothing about, was if you had to pick the greatest song ever written in terms of lyrical and musical quality, what would it be?
Oh my gosh.
And, I love questions about this. I'll try to pick a genre. I love music.
Yeah.
I'm not like a crazy fanatic, but I think it's one of the most powerful forces in the world to create healing and change. So anyway, I'll go with Ode to Joy. Is my favorite, is my song that would fit that. I actually use classical music in my workout music each morning.
Yeah.
But I'm also a product of the early 2000s. So I'm a huge Dashboard Confessional fan. And that genre, if I were to say, Ode to Joy is so interesting because it's the first classically written song that ever had lyrics in it by a major composer. So he was highly innovative in his approach there. But also the way in which he creates emotion and the translation of that to English is some of the most moving words ever written. They're obviously German, but anyway, he's able to pull together some great themes, just like K-pop Demon Hunters.
Yeah.
I cry in K-pop Demon Hunters.
Yeah.
So,
I listened to Golden on the way over here while I was walking to the Venetian this morning.
I listened to it yesterday because I miss my daughter singing it every day.
Oh, there you go. I love that. What about you, Darin?
Well, I'm going to want to hear about yours because now I'm interested.
I'll tell you mine.
Right?
I'll tell you mine.
Mine's not necessarily a genre, but almost a method. I don't know if I'm sure most people know about Zac Brown Band.
Mm-hmm.
They're my wife and
Little
I's
chicken
favorite
fried.
band. Yeah. And
homegrown.
They had to create their own label. They had to create their own methods. They wanted to break out from what everybody was telling them they needed to do, and to be with kind of held back by the industry that tells them what and how to do it. And what was interesting is they came out with a album. I think it was Jekyll and Hyde album, where there were 2 songs on there. One, I think it was Chris Parnell was on it.
Yeah.
Another one. And they were hard rock, heavy metal songs. And they got criticized by all of their country fans. And that is what endeared me to them, is because of that defiance of, hey, we're not just stereotyped into one version. We love all music. That's how I see myself and us at Chisel as, hey, we're trying to figure out how to solve things. But if there's a way to solve it that's different than what we have been told what we should do it, that's how we're going to do it. It's almost that defiance, right? And
I love that.
And that reminded, when I read that question, it reminded me, we're coming back down to see him in the Sphere. It'll be the first time.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me that.
And I look at what he produces in that music, it doesn't matter who's playing it. That what matters is the quality of what's being played.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the way I identify
So
that
good.
one.
I love it. Love that tie-in. No, you asked me what I think mine would be. And I forgot about this. So like in relation to between builds, because that's really the product that's being built, right? So it's totally, I don't know if you guys listen to this, but you put both your headphones in and do the bilateral stimulation where the music goes from left to right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of helps connect the brain together. So I think that's just such a great reflection of between builds, because a lot of times we talk about the left side that's like growing and scaling, like trying to do the logical thing, which is so good and right and correct. But we also need like the right side that brings in like the real life and the empathy and the emotional intelligence and the connectivity and like meeting people where they're at on that journey. And I talk to so many founders and do so much advisement. And Darin, you know this, like sometimes our calls are like half therapy, right? Like it's just, what are we dealing with? Like, how is it pivoting? How's the team responding?
Yeah.
And we don't always make time or space to talk about those, at least on the mic. A lot of those are behind scene conversations. So I love like bringing the right and the left side together because that's really where those magical things happen. So
I like that.
Yeah.
That reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, and I can't remember who it's from, but he says that his version of a highly intelligent person is somebody that can maintain two opposing thoughts in their mind at the same time and still maintain the ability to function.
Yes.
And that is so hard as a founder sometimes to be able to be like, there's this impending doom, but I also have to go pitch a customer right now.
Yeah.
Like probably one of the hardest parts of my day as a founder, especially early on, is I go from massive problem to pitching a customer to pitching investor to massive problem. And you do that 9 times. You're context switching like that so rapidly in a day. And you have to be able to maintain the ability to function at high quality functioning at each one of those steps.
Yes.
That can be very difficult. Sorry to jump in.
No, that's perfect. I think it's just managing those tensions. And like you said, just the context switching is super extreme. Like I was talking to Leong with Vanzery, who handles all the PR. And, you know, I was like, what'd you do today? And she's like telling me everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of context switching. And she's like, I am going to be dementia proof when I'm older, right? Because like when you do context switching, it helps the brain functioning. I was like, that's a really positive way of looking at it because it does create like a resiliency, but it's also quite exhausting, like from a founder perspective to have to go from this to that and just show up as your best self over and over again. But that's really good. So let's.
Well, I just got to say something. For a second, because I was just thinking about what Jordan just said, and it kind of surprised me a little bit because I get advice from him all the time, and I watch him navigate LinkedIn, and he is a master of making people feel that he understands their business and praise them for the good things that they're doing. And I look at that and I go, how does he even find time to figure that out? And that answer that he just gave me a clue into how he does that. So I think it's great.
What do you think, like, where are some of those best ideas that you're working with and you're working through right now? Like, where are those coming from? Are those coming from customer pain? Are they coming from, you know, conversations you're having in the marketplace? Are you just curious about a certain space? Like what in relation, you guys kind of operate in different worlds, but what are you obsessed with?
You know, I think the ideas for me come from the pain. The data comes from the analysis of the problem, but the pain turned into curiosity or curious defiance, right? So for me, it's about, why is the system running the same that everybody thinks it should be running when there's problems that aren't being solved? And so a great example right now is we deal with a lot of banks and our customers are wanting to launch a program on a bank. And so we take them to the banks, we prepare them for the banks. Then the banks will send us things to fill out that are, and the format they're in are just archaic.
Right.
And to us, that's pain for everybody, including the bank.
Right.
And so we decided that even though we're launching like a reg tech segment of our company, should we include those forms to automate them in a workflow in our reg tech offering? And so we
That's so
start
true.
going around to see how much pain that is. And it's a lot. Then we start the analysis. But it's really the defiance of saying, why are we continuing to just do things the same way? Because no one wants to focus on it. Nobody really has the time in their eyes. And for us, it could just be a small add to our offering. Right. So
when you were
is
sitting,
a great idea.
I was in the demo yesterday that you were doing with that particular bank.
Right.
And then I remember you calling me last week, like, I think we need to add this on the front end because everybody needs this component and it's a hot mess. And so it was fun to like watch that come alive in less than a week. And then actually sit with the bank during the demo. And they're like, their eyes lit up and they sat forward and like, hey, if we can do this, like we can do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And it was really fun.
It gets exciting when somebody like their head of compliance is at a conference that they don't want to be at, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And then you start talking about something that could improve what they're doing and they light up. They start going, oh wait a minute. Let's back up a second. Can I see, and that gets exciting.
Yes.
Right. Because they're animated all of a sudden.
Yeah. 100%.
They feel like they came and they had a purpose for.
Right. And somebody solved a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What about you, Jordan? Like, what are you thinking?
It's funny because actually, particularly on this problem. So I sold my first company to a company called Q2 who had a pass offering at the time. And I remember looking at it. It was fascinating to me. It was so fun. I worked very closely with Michael Ferrari, who was one of the founders of the company they acquired to create that offering. And I didn't know Darin yet. And then about 3 years later, after I'd left that company and started this company, actually, in the first year, I went down and spent some time with some people in Texas. And we were out at this ranch for like 2 days. We're just brainstorming, like, why don't the banks do this themselves? There shouldn't have to be a middle person here sitting in between. And I mean, it comes down to resource constraints oftentimes. Like, how do they aren't technologists, and some of this requires deep technological expertise.
Even if they are, they're not trusted as technologists perception wise. Totally. Those fintechs that are like, I'd rather use with somebody that the API docs look this way, or there's no API docs needed, or whatever it is. Right. So I think that's something that over that 2 or 3 day period we were together, I just kept thinking like somebody has to come along and do this. It's going to happen eventually. And that's one reason I'm really excited about what Darin's building is, that I don't think people understand how hard this problem is. Like there's been a whole vast industry created around the fact that banks couldn't do it themselves. Right. Whereas Darin, if I'm misunderstanding his business, is saying you can do it yourself. And like, I'm going to help you do it, but we're going to empower you to be successful here and have these direct relationships that are going to make your business not have to get all the margin creep from all these other people having a hand in what's going on. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And have the tech components that go alongside that, right? That really enable that to happen. Yeah. So when you're thinking about the ideas, like you've done several companies, you're starting a new one, like how do you decide when there's an idea really worth betting on? Like describe that for me.
Sure. I'll start if that's okay, Darin.
Yeah.
So there's a few frameworks that I've put in place and to be able to help me with my decision making here, but I will certainly say it's emotional, right? And so like for me, I've made a living off of building B2B2C companies. So taking a product that might be good direct to consumer and helping financial institutions or fintechs go launch that to their customers. And all of our missions have been for the consumer, even though our customer was the financial institution or fintech. And so it's kind of hard because we're an arm's length away from what we're trying to influence.
Right.
But at the same time, like I'm sitting down with my mom at Christmas time. She's like, you know what we really need, Jordan? I just tried to switch banks and I couldn't switch over my payments. And my wife's like, choking on her water. I was like, that's the company he built, but it's like, but I think, so I get really excited about consumer problems I face, problems other people face.
Sure.
But I would never start a company or get excited about something until I'd pitched it to 15 people and started just hearing. And I'm fortunate that I have started a company before. It was a lot easier the second time to go pitch 15 people than it was the first time.
Right.
But just going and talking to them and be like, oh my gosh, you can do that. That's what I live for, right? Is like that next thing where we say, okay, here's what we're doing next. Like, oh my gosh, yes, that's what we need. And sometimes you have the wrong buyer, things like that. You'll get mixed up on the signals there. But that's the fun part. It's where the genius meets, like, K-pop Demon Hunters just taking off, like it's like, well, they had a super different approach. Right. But that approach has found a home in the hearts of so many kids and parents too, maybe. But that I think is what you're looking for. It's how can I get that dialed in and deliver that to somebody and have them see that vision and say, oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. Like, I get it. Yeah. I love that. How about you, Darin?
I can attest he does that. Not just does he do it, I emulated it. And he's one of the guys I approach.
Yes.
Yep. So I just look at my network. One of the things that I grew up knowing was, at least my dad was great about, making sure I understood was I'm a people person, and I can really build a great network, build bridges and not ever knock them down. But how do I use that to my advantage is what's been my whole career, which is, hey, if there's an idea out there, I'm sure, Jordan, you can agree, there's a lot more ideas than whatever comes out of it as a company or what's built, right? I mean, by far, there's so many. And I just start socializing it out there with the people in my network I completely trust, right? Because sometimes you need it to be non-disclosed, right? So, and you just need their opinion. And I gauge the reactions of the people that I fully trust and I know that have done this, like Jordan, and they know who they are, Tyler and Scott and Kevin and all those guys, right? And I gauge what they react to it and how they say it because of their experience. And that feeds into the emotion of my excitement, or it will kill it, one of the two, right? And it'll tell me this is something worth taking forward. Doesn't mean I'm going to build a company around it, but I do the exact same thing.
Yeah, I like that.
I want to know what you've done in the past, because I've worked with you a lot.
You work with me a lot.
But not at those cusps, right?
Yeah. So I go back to what Jordan said. Like, it really is emotional. I mean, I remember when I was leaving Jack Henry after 2 decades, right? And I had a very up and to the right career path. And I decided to exit and go to a late stage startup. And it really was something that I just felt in my bones, right? I had made the decision I was going to leave Jack Henry. I had not decided what I was going to do next. And then I met Joel and his bootstrapped fintech. They were 10 million in revenue, based in Brooklyn, never been there. And it was just a moment that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in love with this product, because it was like the workday for small business, which was such an underrepresented area. So I loved the purpose of it. And then I loved the mission. They wanted to double their revenue and exit in a couple of years. And I'm like, this is doable, and it's amazing because you're freaking bootstrapped at 10 million. Like, that never happens in fintech. It never happens. Yeah. So rare. And so it was just like, this is my moment. Like, I can't describe it other than you just kind of know it in your soul and you take it. And that's what we did. We doubled the revenue, went to 24 million and a little over 2 years, and exited at 150 last October. And
I think there's an underlying thing in there that you recognize that moment. Yeah. In order to recognize that moment, you had to be preparing yourself to be ready to recognize it. That takes more than most people think. Yeah. You got to pay attention. You got to really think about things a different way. And that's great.
Right. Well, and I think it goes kind of into my next question, which is like, sometimes when you look at something on paper, it doesn't necessarily look right on paper, but it turns out to be so amazing. So do both of you have a moment that you can kind of anchor to that says, hey, I took a leap on something that felt wrong on paper, but it was just amazing? Or more, maybe you're in that moment right now, like it's going to be amazing. But Jordan, what do you have to say there?
Yeah. So I'll share, one example. I feel like there's only been one time in my whole professional life that I felt like I knew the future. And it's very, very rare for somebody to feel like I've done enough of this that I know that I'm wrong most of the time. Yeah. But we had this moment where we were very confident that the way that open banking went about things and versus our market, where we're more in the open finance market and connecting to non-financial institutions, when all of the players in open banking got started, they were pulling credentials in, they were screen scraping systems, they were doing some things that some argued were not super secure. Others were like, I'm not here to argue that point, but we saw this opportunity to build something that would allow us to never get credentials, still have an OAuth like experience. And it was like, oh my gosh, some of our customers were pushing us to try to find and discover something. We figured it out and we saw it. You looked at the amount of effort to build this thing, and it was like, this makes no sense.
Right.
This is like, we're already over here. We already have a functional product the old way. This makes no sense. But we were like, it has to go this way. We can make the future happen. If we do this, we have enough large clients, we can make the future happen. And so we pursued it really hard for like 2 years. And then what happened was SVB went under. We had one RFP from top 10 banks the year prior. SVB goes under and 6 RFPs happen in 6 months for trying to get more deposits. Right. And it was perfectly timed. And we can't do anything about timing, right? Yeah. But it was perfectly timed with the product we had created as we were selling into all those financial institutions. Like, those issues you had with open banking back in the day, right? Our competitors have them and we don't. And we'll never get a user's name and password from a customer in 85% of the scenarios we encounter. And it was like perfect. So that was the time, was like, in your heart, you're like, it has to work this way. If this works the way we think it will, it has to work this way. And it ended up doing it.
Yeah. Those are magical moments. I love it when it works out like that. Doesn't
one time in my whole life.
One time in your whole life.
One time in my whole life.
Yeah. It's okay. We can ride that for the rest of our life. It's okay. Yeah. What about you?
You know, I was thinking about it. Just it wasn't my idea. We were told that it was wrong and you can't do it, right? And on paper, it was literally wrong. It was against MasterCard and Visa bailouts internationally. It was the banks didn't want to do it. And the way in order to, really push out an authorized user account issued to somebody outside of the U.S. who is not a U.S. citizen, you have to abide by the Patriot Act laws. And in order to issue the card, you're violating the network's rules to protect the banks in that region for not having that done. And it felt wrong. But what ended up happening was we figured out a solution to get the KYC to be compliant completely and get the bank comfortable with it and get the network to have the region's banks understand that it is not infringing on what they're doing. It's a whole different product than what they're trying to offer. And we are willing to partner with them to do it, even if it ended up being a really great, product in and of itself. But it was an uphill battle. And everybody, including one of the networks, said those rules will never change. Yeah. And they did.
Right.
And for us, it was great for families. Saved them a lot of money.
Right.
So
great example.
Yeah.
Love that. Let's talk about painful pivots, because we all have these in life, like either from a product strategy standpoint or just a personal standpoint where you really had to dig deep and make a hard pivot for yourself or for others. So vulnerable moment of things that
this one I want to hear your answer on too, because I know.
Yeah. You probably already know my answer, man. Yeah.
When we first started Chisel, the idea was we need long-term contracts because we know what we're doing. It's worth it, right? Why would they not want to sign long-term? And we quickly realized that everybody trying to come into the space that has not been in the space, they want to own a card program or they want to own a payment program. They don't understand how complex it is. And from the outside, it seems pretty simple, right? I mean, the old adage of everybody thinks that interchange is going to be all kinds of money for them. And in some cases, it doesn't even help them break even. And it was really difficult to get them to understand that and at the same time, trust that we'll guide them through it for more than a year, right? So we had to pivot, which was really painful in some ways, especially to the investors that are looking at us. You. Yeah.
There's eye contact there for those who are just listening to that.
Yeah. But we said, we tried a few out, said, what if we did a 3-month engagement? Here's what we're going to accomplish in those 3 months. We're going to get you a pro forma. We're going to get you a plan. We're going to get you a project plan with timelines. We're going to introduce you to the banks. We're going to get the negotiations done if it's a go. but that 3 months, consider it a go, no go. Now we've already vetted because we've been experienced enough to know whether they're going to work or not. Right. So if we move forward, we know they're going to work. But for us, that 3 months was an education for them. And what we didn't want to do it because we thought we're not here to sign short-term engagements. We wanted to do it to prove that our technology and what we're building is worth it. Right. And every single one we did, we're 100% conversion over to a longer term contract because they are not only educated how complex it's going to be, they start to realize this is not our core. Right. This is going to derail some of our technology resources. And we've got a client that has 300 developers in-house that is paying us to build it for them because they're like, we have a roadmap and this is so complex in this industry. To pull people out of that and get them to learn it is going to cost us way more than what we'd ever pay you. Yeah. So let's go. Yeah. And for us, that ended up working out really well. So we use it now as kind of a lead in. Right. We know we got to explain to you what you're about to embark in. We're pretty confident 3 months will teach you and get you on board at Chisel. Yeah. So it's one thing to like hold the line for yourself. And it's another thing to have to hold the line for everybody else. Yeah. And like, I know you think you know what you want, or I know you think you want X, but you don't. And like, I have to lay down the line in order for you to really get the best, in the long term, which is challenging because not everybody agrees with that. And they're like, see ya. So that takes a lot of courage. What about you, Jordan? Painful pivots as you think about?
I will share a personal one, if that's okay.
Of course.
I don't think I've ever shared this in a recorded place. I've shared a few small group settings. So on my 30th birthday, I had sold a company 2 years prior. And that was a really cool experience. I was then done with that. And I locked myself in my room for 3 hours and considered regrets from my 20s. And because I went to stone cold sober BYU, I didn't have a ton of crazy college regrets. But, on my list of about 8 that I ended up coming up with, one of them was feeling envious of my co-founder and business partner. And he and I built a company together for 5 years, sold that company. But at the end of selling that company, there was I won't describe all the circumstances, but a knockdown, drag out kind of fight about something happening. Yeah. And I was in a position to be able to leverage some things and get things done. And both of us will admit there were errors committed. And I think that was partially powered by the envy that I felt for him for some of his amazing talents and skills. One of the most talented people I've ever worked with. He's a wonderful human being as well. But I remember sitting there and just thinking how small of a human I was for feeling envious about another. I have plenty of gifts. Why do I have to compare myself to someone else? Of course. And even if I didn't, why can't I just be grateful for what I have? And so our company was acquired in January. And then, in February, I was feeling like just this deep sense of sadness about our relationship being lost over some of these issues. And so I wrote him a letter and dropped it off at his house and asked for his forgiveness. And in April, he was the first person outside my wife and I to hold our daughter when she was born. And so maybe the key thing here for me is envy's beneath us. We don't need that. But also forgiveness is magical. And when we choose to forgive, we experience a power in our lives that will create happiness and joy and a real connection. And when I went to start Atomic, I called him up. I was like, I'm not starting this company with anybody but you. So quit your job. And he's like, sweet, let's do this thing. And, I have 20 years. I mean, I've spent more time with him than probably with my wife and kids. And to choose to let a relationship go like that would have been such a sad thing. So anyway, that's something for me that's been a personal pivot is revisiting. I do that annually now. What I need to get rid of for myself to be happy about who I am and not regret. It was a regret minimization exercise. How do I not regret things in my 30s that I regretted in my 20s and how to remove them from myself? Yeah, I love.
You see why I have him as a mentor.
Of course,
that kind of integrity is rare. Yeah, in this.
It's powerful to step back and just and deeply humbling. Like you have to reckon with yourself and things that we don't love about ourselves, right?
Correct.
Like being willing to share those things and like seek forgiveness over them and name them and create space for them and do some soul searching around like, why is that there and what does that mean and how can I move forward in a healthier way? So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Happy to.
I love that. So just kind of in our final minutes together, I'd love to hear what you want to tell the audience. Like you've both built things and moved on from different things. And now you're in between builds, whether that's a product strategy or a company or just personal. Like sometimes we're in between belief systems. Sometimes we're in between seasons in life, personally. But what do you want the listeners to hear from you just from your personal stories?
Well, I will say, my people have asked me how I got to where I am, and in my opinion, it's not me. I was smart enough to surround myself with people that are better and smarter than me. And that was one of the things that, and you got to be willing, like Jordan, to accept feedback and not just think that you're the only guy that has the best ideas.
Of course.
And I've seen both sides of that. I mean, if you just look at my career, most people who've been in this industry understand what I mean by that. When you look at the companies that I've helped build, I've seen both sides of it. And the only side that's rewarding is the side of trusting everybody around you. But you can't do that until you know who they are. And those are the people that I go after and beg to come aboard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And surround myself with. And I had somebody the other day tell me, well, you're starting to rebuild the team that you put together back before. And I'm like, well, in ways, And so that person was, well, I was on that team. And am I getting a call? And I said, that's actually why I'm here.
Very nice.
And they were like, are you serious?
Oh,
so I'm like, absolutely. Yeah, it just comes full circle. But for me, we're rebuilding a team of great people, which is the whole asset of the company, right?
Right.
Whether it's service or a system, the people that build it and the way they build it and the way they interact with the clients is what's the most valuable piece of Chisel. So that's what we're doing.
I love that. It's good.
Yeah, I would say maybe I'll add like one or two or three things fairly quickly.
Sure.
One is just get started. There are so many people that I've talked to for a decade now. They're like always throwing ideas at me. I'm like, that's great. And like, how did you do it? I'm like, I just got started.
Yeah.
I quit a job that I was making good money at, and I just did it. Right. Because, and I mean, some DNA is different in people, but, that regret minimization framework can be helpful. Projecting yourself forward and saying like, am I going to feel huge amounts of regret for staying in this job that I'm currently in and not going and chasing something? Some people will say yes to that. Some people will say no. Right. But for me, it was my wife was like, start another company, which I don't love you doing, but just do it for me. So I think that's one thing. I would say the other thing is there is a false narrative that you can't have financial or business success and have a happy family. And it just don't believe it. Put family first above yourself. Oftentimes, I don't love my wife hates the self-love comment. I do think we need to self-love, but
I agree.
But it's like there are things that are more important.
Yeah.
And having a family is. I've told all of my investors, if this business fails, I'm okay with that. If my relationship with my children fail, I'm not okay with that.
Right.
And my wife. And I think that that's something that, sometimes get lost.
Yeah.
It gets lost for people. And so, don't give up the most important thing for something that's not as important.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. Those two things.
I love it. Beautiful advice. Wonderful closure.
And yours?
Oh, mine. Yeah, I do agree with Jordan. Like I would summarize, do it afraid. Like go do the big things and shake in your boots, but just like have the courage to step out and just lay the next brick, and build the road slowly.
You only grow when you're like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That was a key reason for me to leave the company that I acquired my other company.
Right.
I looked at my co-founder. I was like, dude, compare our growth in the last year to our growth the 5 years prior.
Yeah.
it's de minimis.
Right.
And it's only when you're out there, you're like, nobody's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just us.
Right.
We solve this or we're toast. Anyway,
Right.
Yeah,
no, I think you're totally right. And then the second thing I would just say is like, similar to what you said, Jordan, but I would paraphrase it differently. Like, live an integrated life. Like, we're so compartmentalized. Like, this is work and this is what I do here. And this is family and this is community. And all of that belongs together. Not that we're all integrated, like from a community standpoint, but like we need to make sure that we're living in a healthy, like well integrated, not isolated. Like, I have my life here and I have my second life here and I have my third life here. Like, that is not a good way or a healthy way to live. So I think practicing, and it has been a practice of integration and of community for me. And that's super powerful because as you build courage in certain aspects, that courage flows over into other parts of your life and brings inspiration and healing. So I would leave that with our listeners, but thank you both for joining me at the MoneyPot. And, I hope you have a great time at Money 2020. And so, all right.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.